Hi, and welcome to the Thriving and Surviving podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Markson, and I'm a mum, an entrepreneur, a coach, and most importantly, I'm someone that loves to make waves, break stigmas, and challenge beliefs. Think of this podcast as a wine and cheese night with your besties, sharing your deepest and darkest thoughts and struggles, but also learning a thing or two. So whether you're thriving or just surviving, this podcast is here to enlighten you, heighten you, and most certainly brighten you. So let's dive right in, and I'm so glad you're here. Hi, and welcome to the Thriving and Surviving podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Markson, and I'm a mum, an entrepreneur, a coach, and most importantly, I'm someone that loves to make waves, break stigmas, and challenge beliefs. Think of this podcast as a wine and cheese night with your besties, sharing your deepest and darkest thoughts and struggles, but also learning a thing or two. So whether you're thriving or just surviving, this podcast is here to enlighten you, heighten you, and most certainly brighten you. So let's dive right in, and I'm so glad you're here. Nearly didn't press record. I'm here with Rhi. I'm very excited to be talking with Rhi. She's a sports nutritionist. She's a very experienced competitor, and she's a bit of a powerhouse in the online space. So welcome, Rhi, and thank you for coming in. So we're going to start with, tell us how you got to where you are now. Where did you start? What's the journey been like to being where you are now as an online coach?
Oh, it's a long one, but it's a good story. Like, I started in the fitness industry before I was even a coach. So I was PTing with obviously a local PT at my gym, and he got me into bodybuilding. Like, I went and watched one of his shows and I was like, oh my God, wow, this is insane. And like, the thing is, he was actually an IFBB competitor, and he went to go do a WBFF show, and I was like, oh, okay, let's go watch this. And I sat down in the audience and I was just baffled. I was like, how do I do that?
Yeah.
And so that's how like the journey began. So I started prepping for my first show, but I didn't have much muscle. So we were working towards ICN, and we thought we'll go natural bodybuilding show first. Yep. And I got really passionate about it, and Instagram wasn't much back then. It was like, post a photo, get heaps of likes.
So what year are we talking here?
We're talking 2016.
Yeah, okay, wow. So quite a while ago.
Yeah, and so like, you know, Instagram started kicking off for me, and I was like, okay, well, post another one.
What is this platform?
This is cool. And I did the ICN show, and I actually did really, really well. I got third place in my first show. And my feedback actually was that I was too defined and too muscular by this point for that particular category.
That was in bikini?
That was in bikini, yeah. So I was like, okay, well, let's move on to
bigger and better things.
WBFF. And we did, and we started getting ready for the next show. And during that time, I started like learning about posing coaching, and I was teaching that, and I just fell in love with the industry. I was a wedding and events manager, and I was like, I'm changing. This is not me anymore. So I started studying did my set 3 and 4 in fitness, and then like at the time, like, I think we had just met after my show.
I feel like because you were still doing some wedding planning when we first met.
Yeah.
So yeah, because Rhi and I actually met because we competed together and we were standing next to each other. This was obviously back
Apparently
before they had
tall.
as many height categories. Because Rhi is not tall. I'm still in the tall category. She is not. But that was back when they only had the 3 height categories. So we were standing next to each other.
Yeah, we got some photos. I walked on, and then Amanda's walked on, and I was like, I can't believe I was in the tall category. Obviously, there was a reason for it. Like, there wasn't as many competitors back then.
I don't know. There was like 50 in our category.
That's true. That was one of the biggest shows. It was the Pro and Am. It was the first one in Australia, though.
Oh, that makes sense.
So that was, I don't think they were expecting the numbers that they got that show. And that was the year after is when it changed, and they did the different heights.
Yeah. I mean, that was when I was still new at Brisbane, and I was like, I like this girl. I'm just going to like message her and make her be my friend.
And you definitely did.
I did. I really did.
And Amanda was actually one of the people that inspired me to move forward with my studies and do my nutrition course. So I was actually getting influenced by a lot of people in the fitness industry at the time, because it wasn't as big back then to be educated in nutrition, telling me that it wasn't a necessity. But what was happening is, through those couple of preps I was doing at the beginning, I was on a very over-restricted diet.
I remember.
Yeah, didn't know how to flexible diet, didn't think that anything was good for me, and I was like, this is not okay. Like, I knew in my head that it wasn't right, and I said to her, I was like, why is it that other people can eat ice cream and have normal food and look amazing, where I'm getting told to eat chicken, broccoli and rice? And she's like, because you're not being educated properly. And that's why I started studying nutrition. So I did all my studies. Amanda helped me set up all my back of house before I even started.
God,
we sat there for ages getting that done. I was like, how do I get on my feet before I even get started? So I think the biggest thing is have a mentor, have someone that you look up to really guide you, because you want to kick off strong. You don't want to be going in there as a PT or even onto the online platform without having everything done. Like I had all my contracts already. I had all my back of house done, all my templates done.
Yeah.
I went in there like full guns blazing. I knew what I wanted to do. I started off PTing, and basically to kickstart my PT.
Going to move that macula close for you.
To kickstart my PT business, I set up a workshop for a week, the first week of January, where I got everyone to come in for a body scan. I explained how the body scan worked, then took down their phone number, their email address, and then booked them in for a free PT session. By the end of my first 3 months there, I had 40 clients in the gym.
That's insane.
And absolutely killed it. I would have to say I was like second tier female coach in the gym within only a few months. And I wasn't as experienced, I guess, in the sake of years of experience, but I already had done so much education externally just from doing certificate 3 and 4. Like I'm really big on knowledge. So I was like, I want to learn as much as I can. And I used to work a lot with like Amanda and my other mentor at the time to try and gain as much information as I possibly could. So I went in there strong and felt like I knew what I was talking about. I felt confident with my knowledge.
I think that's such an important skill for people that do have that success in any sort of health related field, is the fact that it is a field that is consistently, there's new studies coming out, new research coming out, bigger and better ways of doing things. So having that drive for knowledge and upskilling, I think is like such a key in being a really great coach.
Yeah. And I also think like, don't ever say you know something if you don't know. There is nothing wrong with not having the answer. You're not an encyclopedia. Like you can try to be, and I know that I go above and beyond to try and know as much as I possibly can, but it doesn't mean that I'm an expert in every field. And you can continually learn from other coaches. And if you don't know the answer, I think the best thing to say to your client is like, I actually don't know. Let me get back to you and find out the right. Let me find out for you and get the right answer.
Yeah, and I think that builds a lot of trust and credibility with your client base as well, because they know that you're not bullshitting them.
Yeah, and you're not going, I'm the gospel. This is what I know. Like at the end of the day, you know what? It's been 7-8 years in the industry now, something like that. And I'm always learning. I don't think you can ever not grow. Yeah.
I think that's one of the things I love about the industry is that you're not in a rut. Like there's constantly...
You cannot. If you're in a rut, you're not doing it right.
100%. No, I think that's really important. But obviously, you know, so you started in the gym, crushing it.
Yeah.
How did you get from there to coaching online?
Absolute shit fight. So basically what happened is 3 months in the gym, crushing it. I was so proud of myself because I'd never, and like obviously at the end of the day we're there to help people, but like when you're also a business owner, so when you're earning money and you're finally going, oh my God, wow, like I did this, that's a huge accomplishment as well. And I was really proud of myself. I was like, I am like financially stable. I'm like doing this on my own. I'm so proud. Everyone thought that it was a bad idea to start a fitness business. Like, and then COVID hit and oh my Lordy.
I feel like COVID was such a wild time. I think about that. Like it's going to be something that's literally taught in schools, being like this time we all got locked in our houses and we couldn't leave and there was no toilet paper and like you look at it on paper and it sounds crazy. It was crazy.
Absolutely. And I can tell you for me it was, because during that time, if you could think about the worst thing you could possibly go through in COVID, I actually experienced 2 weeks.
Gastro with no toilet paper? Or?
It's on the same scale for me. I 2 weeks before we got locked out, I broke my foot in a PT session. It was 4 a.m. I had been doing 7 days straight for the first 3 months and living off minimal sleep. Like, and that's what it takes, honestly, at the end of the day. When you're trying to start a business, like you are just go, 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 go. And my client got a PB and I was so happy. I was like, yes, girl, let's go. Anyway, went to go put the 15 kilo weight plate back onto the rack. And here's me thinking and I'd done it. And she asked me a question and I've gone like this to put it onto the weight plate at like the stand. And I've turned around and it wasn't actually on the stand and it's come straight down, cracked me straight in the foot.
Oh, no.
I didn't feel it straight away and then it was just like ridiculous. Drove myself home and I couldn't stand on it. I went to sleep, had an ice pack on it, got up and I collapsed out of the bed. My dad ended up having to take me to the doctors, then to the hospital. And so I had like this cast on my foot. I PT'd with my cast. Like I had a helper. I got one
I
of
can
my.
just picture you waddling through the gym with you.
I hired one of my like really good clients because she worked from home to come and do a couple of days a week where she would unrack all the weights for my clients and I would do the PT session during that time.
Oh my
like
gosh.
I was not giving up. I was like, no way. I've just started this business.
Too much momentum.
Yeah, I am not going to stop just because I wrote a foot. My arms were so sore from those crutches. And then COVID came, and my 5-year business plan was to go online within 3 to 4 years. But I was only running like online, like short amount of online programming for my PT clients, like basic nutrition, and then I was also doing like their training blocks. But they weren't actually fully online clients; they were PT clients, and they closed the gym unexpectedly. And I was like, "Holy hell, what do I do?" Within 48 hours, I transformed my entire business to an online platform. I literally lived off caffeine for 2 days.
I bet.
And I ended up scheduling calls with every single one of my clients every day of the week. So every person had one call with me each week until we returned back to the gym to maintain my client now
client like database.
My client database. So I came back with half a team, and I was only one of I think 4 or 5 coaches that were able to come back with any clients at all.
God, because COVID, it rolled it rolled the industry, and I know it certainly blew my mind the fact that they shut down gyms. When
Right.
you know, to me, I get that. For a lot of people, they view it as like a hobby and recreational, but it is such a core component with mental health. And
Absolutely.
like when we're not allowed,
I was a big believer.
But when they still had beauty salons open and they closed gyms, like I know that, you know, you're not sweating all over things at the hairdressers, but still.
But it was supposed to be the essentials.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, for me, I think that any form of like fitness activity
100%.
is an essential because it's for people's mental health. Like I know for a fact that if I don't go to the gym regularly, my mental health crashes.
Same.
Like, and I'm just one of those people that need it. And I don't think about it until I'm not going. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm living my best life. And then if I've had a crazy week where I haven't been able to get to the gym, I start to notice how like moody I'm getting, and then my anxiety is getting higher, and I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh my God, girl, you have not given any time for yourself. You have not trained this week.
And I think that's something we're definitely going to dive into a little bit more is the balance and, you know, avoiding burnout, because we know you've got a bit of experience to that. But tell me, so from that 48 hours, you've rolled all your clients online, launched your online business. What happened then?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I was in the dark. I didn't really know what I was doing because this was all new to me. It was way ahead of schedule. It was before I'd ever thought about transitioning online. Like I wanted to nail it as a PT long term before even going on to being an online coach, because I wanted to build all the fundamentals. I wanted to make sure that I knew exactly what I was doing. And like my business platform wasn't set up to be an online coaching platform.
Yeah.
So like I trialed and errored. Like I tried doing the silly home workout videos. And for me, I just felt like an idiot doing that because like I'd never done resistance band training. That just wasn't my thing. And like some people were killing it in that market, and I was like, you guys look amazing, why can I not do this? And here's me like dicking around trying to make it look good, and I just couldn't do it. And then I was like, what am I amazing at? I am amazing at creating really amazing like recipes.
Yeah.
I'm really good with nutrition. I'm really good with like explaining detail, and I'm really good with mental health and motivation. So I took those key aspects and I focused on that. And that's why I set up the calls with my clients. I was like, most of them were really struggling. They didn't have any equipment because they got closed down. They didn't even have resistance bands. They couldn't get to the shop. Like a lot of people had lost most of their jobs. So they were living off bare minimum. So like I worked around every possibility I possibly could. That was, I guess, my biggest advantage as a coach of what I was great at.
Yeah. And I think that is so important. People that talk about, you know, starting a business, or even just, you know, okay, if you wanted to be an online coach, but it is quite a saturated market, is what am I good at and what will be my point of difference that I can bring to the market? What's unique about me that are going to make people want to coach with me as opposed to the next person? And if you can nut out what that skill set is for you and bring that to the table, I feel like that is the key to success.
Yeah, and I don't think you should be trying to be everything and anything.
Yeah.
Like I see, like don't get me wrong, there are some people that are just fantastic in multiple different fields within the fitness industry, and like hands down to them. But the biggest thing I used to see, especially starting out as a PT, it was like they'd try and be a posing coach. They'd try and be an expert in building glutes. They'd try and be an expert in this.
Yeah.
And I was like, but are you an expert yet? Or is that something that you want to be an expert in? Like, focus on the fundamentals or the things that you were really strong at now, and have those as things that you want to work towards, but don't claim to be an expert in something when that is not your expertise yet.
And look, rather than doing 10 things at 50%, pick 2 at 100.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, I completely agree. So you come online, you've launched your business, you're getting the fundamentals, you're finding your niche, you're finding your groove and your place in the industry. Then what? And I mean, you're doing this at the same time as still juggling competing, right? Like you were still prepping. You did a lot of back-to-back shows there.
I was actually going to try and compete while having this broken foot. Like I was thinking,
I remember that. You were like, I think I can still prep. And I'm thinking,
yes.
No.
So I was going to try and prep still. I was like, because I got told 8 weeks recovery, right?
Yeah.
It was so much longer. So I was thinking I can do a lot of booty band work at home. Like I can, do my upper body trainings. I bought like a full setup machine for back in the shed. And I was like, I can do all of this.
I love the enthusiasm.
I was like, I can do this. I'm motivated, but I didn't. I was so not ready. But what I did do was focus on off season while I was doing that. But that required so much time as well, because I was still only so new in the industry. So I was having to stay on top of promoting, thinking outside the box, building the brand, being active on social media. And then on top of that, recovery, travel time. Oh, it was nuts. But when we finally came back to the gym, I said, I am not going to fail. That was my biggest thing. I was like, I have come all this way. I left a career. I have invested my energy and time. I'm going to make this work. So I rebuilt everything back up, and I was working at a World Gym Macrovac, for anyone that does remember that. And I finished out my contract till the end of the year. And actually during that time I had to move back home because I couldn't look after myself properly because I'd hurt my foot and obviously had a cast on and stuff. So I was living at my parents' place, who live in Jim River. So it was a massive commute to Macrovac and back every single day.
Yeah.
And I just said to them, I was like, I'm moving. And they're like, okay, you're moving back to Brisbane? I was like, nope, picking up my stuff and going to the Gold Coast.
Yes.
And my mum was like, okay. And I was like, next week. And she's like, with who? And I was like, don't know, found this girl on Flatmates, thought it was a great idea, I'm leaving. And I picked up my life, finished up my contract at Macrovac, moved over to World Gym Coomera, and I set up a full detailed office. I had people coming in for face-to-face. I had PT sessions. I was running online. And I ended up, and I know people aren't going to love to hear this, but I ended up closing my doors 3 months in the cooling off period, because my online was kicking off so hard that I was like, why am I doing this when I'm not able to invest my time in all 3 parts of the business right now without one failing? I wasn't getting as many PT sessions, but I didn't have the time to do it because my online was too busy.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to do face-to-face, and I was like, I need to do one or the other. And I was like, you have literally got 2 days to decide, because if you don't cancel this contract, and I spent thousands on setting up that office. My front door sign cost more than I'd like to admit, because I was like, it has to be the best. I was like, I want it to look amazing. And I was like, no, you got to bite the bullet. You got to do this.
Yeah.
And I did. And I was like, I did a year and a half basically of being a PT and walked away. Moved straight into the online platform, and I was so excited. But I wouldn't say don't be a PT. I think it's the most amazing stepping stone. I think
agree
that if you really passionate about the fitness industry, you need to start there first.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't change what happened either, because it just kept leading to the next step. It's kind
of the universe pushing you in certain directions, right?
Yeah.
And you've chosen to just adapt. It's sort of...
I feel like that's the motto I live by.
Adapt.
Adapt.
Don't break, adapt.
Don't break down, adapt. Find a solution.
So how long have you been an online coach for now?
7 years.
7. Oh, yeah, true. Yeah, since you've closed down from there. All right. So
7 years as a coaching, but 4 years probably as online coach, if that's what you mean.
Yeah. And then obviously, you're doing a lot of work with Jake at the moment. So how did that come about?
That was during one of my preps. So Jake's been my comp prep coach for, I think it's 3 years now. 3 years?
I think something like that.
Yeah. I'm terrible with years, guys.
God,
I feel like I lived 2 years in 1 year.
Oh, no, it must. Oh, no, it probably is about, because I know Callie, that comp of yours, I had Callie, because that was her first bodybuilding show she'd been to since I'd had her.
Yeah, so that would be
right. My children come to bodybuilding shows, but
that would be about right then. And I was prepping a couple of clients myself for the show.
Yeah.
And Jake and I were like discussing them. Like I'd go into my meetings and we'd do my prep, but then we'd end up sitting there and talking business. And he was like doing these clients, and I was just like going through what I was doing for their like peak weeks and stuff like that. And Jake's like, oh yeah, rah, rah, rah. And we were just discussing it, and I thought it was amazing. I was like, he was giving his insight, and I was like learning again from a different person and their perspective. And I was like, okay, fantastic. And I'm not going to lie, I went into the show having high hopes, right? So I was like, this is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Jake had high hopes too. He like, the one thing I'll say about Jake is like, he's not going to promise you a win.
Is that your silver bikini?
Yes.
Yes, I remember.
That was my
Compass by bikinis.
Yeah, that was my comeback show after doing my back in, going through the endo, everything else. Just having a hell of a year, and I struggled that whole prep. My back was flared up half the time I was competing.
A brief little intermission. And now we've completely lost our train of thought because we just really needed to check to make sure these recordings were going off all good.
I think we're talking about how I
started doing a little bit of chatting with Jake, a little bit of mentoring with Jake.
Yeah, and then I did my first show with him, which was the silver and green bikini. And I had like, this is going to sound really stuck up the way this is going to come across. It's not the intention.
Yeah, go.
But I came, like I'd never come past fourth on stage. So it was always been fourth, third. And I was like, we came back and it was the best body comp I'd ever had, like muscle wise. Like we'd grown so much.
Yeah.
And I was so proud of it. And we came in so tight. And the information we were receiving that show was they wanted softer bikini, right? Now I'm a lot older than everybody else. So, you know, to get tightness for me so I don't get jiggly glutes on stage and stuff like that, I have to be very, very lean. And so Jake and I made the decision, because we did get that lean, like we were stupid crazy. I was like stoked because like, can I stay like this? He's like, well, they want softer, so we can't stay like that lean. We need to fill you up. So we spilt over on purpose. We like over carbed and then drive back out for the show. And like I came in super full. Yeah. But walking back at the photos, and like I'm very much a big critiquer of my own personal body. Like I don't sit there and go, oh my God, it was mine. Like, you know, I'll sit back and go, okay, well, what did I not have, or what did I need to do more? And I look back at the show and like I was the biggest girl on stage. And like the thing is I wasn't big, I was a size 6, but in comparison to everybody else, because I was softer and just the way that my body shape and genetics and my muscle and I just it didn't look right. And even Jake and I sat back and goes, well, from a body composition aspect, like your carbs are the smallest. So like you are like glute heavy and like quad heavy, but then your hamstrings and your carbs aren't tying you back through, which is making you look even more like out of proportion. And he goes, and you have a very detailed back, which you need to hide. And so it was like,
it's a bit easier now that they don't want your hair moved off your back. I was like, that works for me.
Yeah. And like obviously with Bikini Athletic now, there's a completely different scope for what I need to be aiming for. But it was just hard because like I came out as 6 and I was devastated, and Jake and I like sat back and was like, I want to do it again. I was like, what's the next one? He's like, agreed. He goes, we're just going to keep you tight and that's it. We're going hard. So I was like, done. I said, I will not settle until we at least get back to where I was. Yeah. I said, that is not something I'm taking. I will not take a 6. But after that show, he was in a transition of moving his business from New Zealand to Australia. Yeah. And he's like, he goes, not all is lost. That was after the show because I was like a weeping mess. I was like, that should be my life. He's like, not all is lost. We're having a meeting on Monday. And he goes, I got something I want to run past you. And I was like, okay. And so like I came over and he said to me, he goes, I watched your prep. He goes, your diligence is insane. Like your mindset towards coaching. I've watched you with your own clients. He goes, I have a proposition for you. And I said, okay. And he goes, I want you to be my performance coach. And I was like, are you serious? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, done. And he goes, do you want to know how much I'm paying you? I was like, I didn't think that was a question. I was like, I'm not going to ask twice. Yes, I want the job. And then he's like, perfect. We'll sit down next week and go over it. And that's just how it started. I think he just watched everything that I do when it comes to the way I prep as a whole, the way I am with my own team. And he was like, that's something that really aligns with me as a person, as a coach. And like, obviously being there for me through some hard times, he was like, this girl like just gives it everything.
And I think that's a huge compliment for you as well, getting that sort of him recognizing and seeing that in you when he is such a big and established person in the industry.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was probably one of the most rewarding feelings to have someone that I really looked up to go, I believe that much in you as well.
Yeah.
Like that, I see the same thing that you see in yourself. And I was like, it really set the mark for me, because I guess having also Jake as my backup, people were like, took me a lot more seriously too. Like I'll say there are some struggles in the fitness industry, being blonde. And like I still think that's crazy to this day. But being blonde, the ditziness or whatever,
blonde,
like
big boobs, Instagram,
Barbie vibes, all that kind of stuff. And it was like he'd never seen that. Not from the moment he looked at me or met me, he treated me like another coach. He treated me,
a coach.
yeah. And like there was so much respect there. And I've always been so grateful for like the way that I get spoken to and treated from him. He's like, there's even through the years of working with him, when we're like talking or going through like different changes within his business and stuff like that. And like, let's say I have an idea or something like that. It's not like, his way and then there's nothing else. He's like, he's like, oh, I like that. That's a great idea. Yeah. Let's look into that. Let's do that. Like it's just very much on board with, having open opinions. He's not like sat there my way or the highway.
It's also one of the, like, I'm obviously taking on, started having coaches as well in Estro, and it's multiple brains. It's different ideas.
Absolutely.
It's
people think differently. Like, and like
100%. And someone else's opinion or thinking outside of the box, like I absolutely want to hear it, because it might be better than my idea.
Yeah, exactly. But that is the truth though. Like you as an individual might have this fantastic idea, but someone sees just something a little bit different that just makes it better,
100%.
And like, I think my favorite part about like my learning process working for Jake was like, I would go to do something with a client, right? And I'm like, he'd be like, oh, so what do you want to do with this client? Right? And I'll like detail out a plan. And he'd be like, that's an awesome plan. And I'm like, thank you. And he goes, but have you thought of it like this? There was never a wrong idea. And he would explain how he would have done it. And I'm like, I like it for these 3 reasons, but I want to do this part. And it would be like a collaborative thing, but it was never like his way. And then when he was like 100% better, because obviously Jake is the more experienced coach in the industry, I'd be like, oh, actually, I really like that approach, but way better. And I'm like, he goes, yeah, only because of like X, Y, and Z. He goes, yours is perfect too. There's nothing wrong with it. He goes, this just makes it easier. And I'm like, no, it really fucking does. You know what I mean? And I feel like if you have got people like that, mentors in your life like that, that are only making you better, and it's never you're wrong or they're right.
Well, the whole point is to grow and learn, right?
Exactly. And like, it's been so many years now in the industry, and then on top of that, working for someone else that's also been in the industry, I think now for like nearly 20 years or something like that. That's been a hot minute. You're continually leveling up because you've got people around you that are even more knowledgeable than you are.
100%. And like, what do they say? Like if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Absolutely. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're not growing.
Yeah. 100%. So speaking of growing, speaking of taking on all of these things, we're going to circle back to burning out. So you tend to juggle a lot, and I feel like we've always sort of had that a little bit in common when it comes to overcommitting and doing more things that might be realistically achievable. Let's tell us about your
I've burnt out more than once. And that's being truthfully honest. I do have a problem with hyper focus and overloading my plate, and I love to say the word yes if it sounds great.
You're a yes gal.
I'm a yes gal because I like the experience, and if I say no to something, I feel like I'm missing out. Like I'm missing the opportunity. Yeah. And I feel like the more you say no to something, the more opportunities you lose. But if you say yes, then you're going to experience it, and you're probably going to learn something. The truth of the matter is, if you say yes all the time, you're going to do what I did, which is burn myself out, and you're not actually absorbing the opportunity because your brain's not in it. So in the last couple of years, I really found the word no. And that's probably been the hardest thing for me, because it's meant saying no to friends on like certain events. It's meant saying, hey, no, I booked coffee with you. That's happened to you before. I'm not coming. I don't feel well today. Because now when I'm taking my own mental health into consideration, I'm better for it with my business, with my partner, with my friends, because then I'm wholeheartely there and rather than being like a zombie head. But to dive into how the burnout came about, it's a load, too much on your plate. So comp prep, partner, business, working for another business, trying to live a life, trying to enjoy things, trying to build or trying to cut, trying to create content. I got to the point where I've had like 2 major burnouts in my life. The most recent one was last year. And that came from a whole heap of different circumstances. And I'm quite happy to openly talk about it now. And I'm not like sitting here going, oh, I'm embarrassed to say it. I'm actually going to start opening up about some of the stuff that happened more.
Yeah, I think you should.
But last year I hit like rock bottom. Basically what happened is I had been introduced to somebody and I thought they were a really lovely person. And unfortunately behind my back, I was being portrayed as an absolute asshole. So that is, I didn't know, obviously, and it was destroying me internally because I was hearing things come back to me that were being said that I had said, but I hadn't, and they'd been manipulated or twisted.
So it was like high school 2.0.
Oh my God, worse than high school. And I had a terrible high school experience and it felt like it was the most triggering experience of my life because it felt like I was reliving traumas that I experienced as a child. And all the people that I was around who loved and adored me were starting to question me. And I would have too. Like, trust me, the shit that was being said, it was like, I would have questioned my loyalty. I would have questioned who I was as a person. So like, I have no hatred there. It's more about the fact that how damaged it was to my reputation as a person and how painful it was. So on top of trying to do all of my normal things, which is already so much, I was also being, I guess, torn apart, physically and mentally by the one thing that's in my control. And I'm a control freak. Like I can definitely say that. So if you take away my control, you've taken away my power. And I felt like I didn't have any power in my own life because the scenario was being set for me.
Yeah. And look, I suppose because I know you so well, like I know that the opinions of the people you care about, like that's something you hold very dear.
Absolutely.
And I'm the same. Like strangers, I actually don't really care.
No, if a stranger doesn't like me and I'm like, well, you don't know me. So you're only judging me on face value.
Exactly. So you've got that sort of security being like, well, that's not a reflection of who I am as a person because you don't even know who that is. So on your horse kind of thing. But when it is people in that bubble, like it does hit different.
Yeah, it does. And like it was putting damage on my relationship in the early days because my partner and I had only just met. Yeah. And so like he's watching this beautiful bubbly girl that he'd met turn into a sobbing mess. I was just crying all the time. I was struggling to pick myself out of bed. I didn't train for 6 months. A lot of people didn't know that.
Which is wild.
I haven't done that in 7 years. I've hit the gym every single day, at least, or not every single day. That's pretty dramatic. I have rest days, guys, but like I've never taken that much time off.
Consistency.
Yeah, the only time I've ever had to take time off before that was when I had my injury, and like that sent me bonkers. So I've just added to how I was already feeling by not training because I've like just spoken about the fact earlier this is a mental health thing for me, and removed that was keeping me feeling good. I couldn't even eat properly, so like I didn't have the motivation to cook for myself, let alone prepare meals. I've never been like that. I was ordering, like, not that GYG is bad, but when that's all you're eating for the day, like that was what I was eating because I just physically had no
will to do anything.
Self-love, anything. I couldn't pick myself up. And the thing is, I feel like I would have been able to handle all of that so much better if I already hadn't pushed myself to burnout. And that's where this comes from. So I'd already overloaded my plate too much.
Already teetering on the edge.
Yeah, I was already sitting on the end of that seesaw. Yeah. And when
the other person jumped off.
Yeah, literally. And so I guess when all of that happened, it was like there was nothing left in me for fighting power to be able to stand up for myself, to weather it, to be able to control my own mindset. It was just like I felt like I wasn't enough anymore. Like I had already worn myself so thin that I was like, you're not this, you're not that. Like the self-talk, self-love was not there. Yeah. And it took quite a long time to rebuild that. And the first thing was I stepped off social media for a while, and a lot of people have probably seen that I wasn't present, and I needed it. I needed the space to rebuild myself, what I wanted, where I was heading, my direction. And I'm proud of myself for doing that because it was...
Especially when, like, look, social media is a huge part of having an online business. They go hand in hand, unfortunately.
Like I had to bite my... I don't even know what I'm trying to say.
Bite the bullet?
Yeah, that was it. That was what I was looking for. Bite the bullet.
Did you going to say bite my sandwich?
No.
I like that expression.
We've made something new today. And I had to like just turn around and say, I can't do everything anymore. I didn't even train when I was trying to rebuild it. The first thing I did was actually just focus on how I felt about myself.
Yeah.
And I knew that came from nutrition. So I started with my food first. I took a huge step back on my business. I just I can't be doing that. I can't be working for Jake. I can't be doing everything. I can't be building content. I was like, I'm just going to put my eggs into one basket for now and just focus on the things that are going to keep me moving forward.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm focusing on my relationship because I love my partner and I don't want to lose him because I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And then I was like, once I got back, I guess, without driving into that whole process, I was like, once I got back into a place where I was like, what does make me feel good? What empowers me?
What sparks joy?
Yeah. What gives me
what sets my soul on fire?
Yeah. And I'm like, refocus. I wanted to do that rebrand so bad. I was like, Risky Fit hasn't aligned with me in years. I'm no longer in my early 20s. I'm in my 30s. I was like, I'm held risky. I still love the nickname. Like, so by all means use it. I think it's cheeky as hell, but it wasn't aligning me from a business perspective. I didn't sound professional, but I didn't want to lose the actual branding RFC. Yeah. So I was like, how do I move forward with this and find something new? And I put my energy into building Refocus and I was like, this is sick. I love this.
How good is it though when like something you're launching is it's almost like an extension of self.
Yep.
It just aligns with where you're at in your life, your headspace, and it's just...
It was this empowerment that I needed. And I honestly was so happy that I did it.
Yeah.
And what people might have seen is that I did the launch and then I went quiet with posting. And it wasn't actually because I didn't want to post. I realized that when I did the launch, yes, I had this empowerment to rebuild this brand. But I was like, but I didn't want it to be the same. And what I hadn't done is really fine-tuned what direction it was going to go. Because the moment I started building out content, I was like, it felt still like it was Risky Fit. Like it still felt like it was that brand. And I was like, as much as that is an extension of who I am in like the past, 6-7 years in the industry, I was like, I need this to be different this time around. I need it can have some of the fundamentals of what that brand was, but this is something different. This is a relaunch of not just my brand, but myself. Yeah. And so I took a step back and I've found it, and like the content is now flowing. I'm creating it all the time. I'm trying to actually edit it on top of doing everything else. And that's the thing I'm falling short on. Hard, but I'm loving it. I've got a brand new team of clients coming through. Yeah. I'm so passionate about being back out there and for myself that I feel like I don't even feel burnt out doing so much because I'm scheduled. I'm saying no when I need to say no. I'm doing the things I love. Like it's such a different energy now. And I feel like if I didn't go through that experience last year, I wouldn't have come back to where I am right now.
I mean, I feel like it took me having kids to learn to say no. It's more so a necessity. Like I would love to, but physically can't. And then it's almost, for me, saying no is very similar to willpower, where the more you do it, the easier and more comfortable you are saying it. Whereas I remember the first time when people are like, do you want to do this? And I'm like, no, I'm kind of like, oh no. Whereas now I'm like, nah. Yeah.
No, first time I said it, honestly, I was like, oh, I feel real bad.
And then the guilt.
Yeah. And I would be like,
I hope it's okay. I don't say no.
Like, but if you really need me to, like.
And I think it makes it, once you start setting no and setting these boundaries, the way people respond to that gives you a very good indicator on whether they're someone that prioritizes your needs and wants too, and are comfortable with respecting your boundaries. Yeah. And I know we even had that when you're like, oh, I'm so sorry, but blah, blah, blah. I'm like, so fine. Yeah. Like,
I think you were one of the first people that I was like, I've actually openly told you. Yeah. I was like, Amanda, I'm trying to say no more. Like, and you're like, okay, explain. Like I need to set boundaries on what I'm capable of doing.
Yeah. And I mean, no is a full sentence. And I feel like that applies to so many areas, like ranging from bloody consent all the way through to just setting any kind of boundary. Like you don't have to justify why you don't want to do something. Yeah. It can purely, one of my girlfriends has been like that since we were kids. And she'd just be like, when I'm talking like when you're in your peak people pleasing era, in those like 19, early 20s. And I'd be like, oh my God, do you want to do this? And she'd go, no. I'm like, why? And she's like, you don't want to. And I was like,
you broke my heart.
Like, how could you? And like, how could you just say that? And now I'm like, love that you've consistently been like that. I'm channeling that now.
Like I'm channeling your energy and I appreciate that value in my life.
It's taken me to get into my 30s to be like, do you know what? You shouldn't have to do things you don't want to do just because someone else wants you to do it.
Oh, amen.
At the end of the day.
And like it has taken me till my 30s. And I feel like, personally from my background of what I've experienced in my life, saying no was very hard for me because I wanted to be accepted, because bullying or disrespect or like, let's say abuse has been present since I was like very young. Just for context, people, my family is amazing. They have never done anything bad. This is external factors, but it's been something that I have dealt with my whole life. So then to, I guess, try and set a boundary to say no to people when you just want them to like you and accept you for who you are, when you know you're a little different, a bit awkward, sometimes say the most randomest shit that can come to her mind. Like you feel that you don't always fit into the right group, or the you know, you're not the simple cup of tea that people want to be drinking.
Oh, I still remember this one girl at high school that didn't like me said to me, I don't like you, but maybe if you pretended to be different, then I might like you. And
oh my gosh.
Being like, wow. And then kind of being like, do you know what? Like, that's kind of okay with me then if you don't like me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, soz.
Yeah, you're like, I don't want to be somebody else.
Just to get you to like me. So... And
agreed.
it's funny, like I would have been, I don't know, 16, and like it's all that conversation has just stuck in my mind. And as someone that doesn't know what they did yesterday, like that's saying something.
Well, I'm like, I've got terrible like memory retention. Like unless
trauma response gal.
Yeah, I know. So like if I'm in front of my desk, I'll remember everything. Like because everything in my head, it's like I'm in the zone of what I'm working on. But if you were to ask me to recall something that I did yesterday, but I'm not in that area of where I need to be to recall that information, I'm like, sorry, what? So like I'm an environment person. So like if I'm in my office, I'm working, and you could ask me anything about anything and I'll be able to like just flick it off the top of my head. But then if you go put me out for having coffee, right? This is off. This is not on. Do not ask me something that I need to remember, because all you're going to get is gibberish.
Oh my God, alarms. Oh, well, I was talking to someone on bloody Tinder the other day, and they're like, oh, do you remember we've spoken? And I'm like, vaguely I do. I was like, was that like 12 months ago, which was kind of the last time I was on Tinder? They're like, oh no, it would have been like nearly 10 years ago. I'm like, well, Christ.
Yeah, you're like, why would you're like, I'm glad I left such an impression on you.
You left a good impression. And I was like, well, that's the main thing. And I was like, Christ.
Well, I think it's because my brain associates information with surroundings or like images, because I've always learnt differently. So like, you might recall this when I was doing my nutrition studies back in the day.
You're a very visual. I
have to be visual, like and like a lot of, if you give me voice, like if I have to listen to something and I actually can't retain that information, whereas if it's visual, if I can, even though I hate reading, if I can read over it, highlight it myself, then rewrite it, I'm going to take that information on so much better, because it's the same thing. Like when I was a kid, I loved dance, and like I had to do the movement. Like some girls could watch it and then just replicate it. I had to actually do the movement a couple of times for my body to get into like the actual pattern of it to be able to actually do the movement. Watching it alone, I couldn't just replicate it.
And I think learning your learning style is something that's really important. And I think it's actually fostered a lot more in schools. Whereas, you know, when we went to school, it was, you know, this is the learning style, everyone's the same.
Yeah, they put me in a stupid kids class because they thought that I was stupid.
In a class, but
well, it's not for stupid kids. I will tell you that because I actually genuinely believe in those classes, but they treat me like I was dumb, like because I didn't learn the same way.
And I think that's good that, you know, they're starting to cater to different learning styles. But I feel like people in our age group, like that wasn't something that was fostered at school. So it's not until you actually get out into the world where, you know, that's where you see people gravitate towards different jobs, and why you probably enjoy doing that hands-on PT in the gym is because it was in there, it was working with your hands. It wasn't just the reading, writing side of things. So I think tapping into your learning style is a little bit like understanding your own superpower.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, as a young woman, I didn't know that. Like I genuinely, and like self-confidence issues, right? Because the way I was treated in school, this is like a really good reflection here, because of the way I was treated in school, and those classes were kind of treated like the stupid kid class because they weren't picking it up the same. And they're not these days, which is amazing. They're actually treated like they just have a different learning style, which I love. But I felt like I was dumb. Like I got treated like I was dumb. So I replicated that in life. Like I didn't feel like I understood things the same way. I didn't learn the same way. You know, people would try and teach me stuff and I'd be like, what? And I wouldn't recall it.
Yeah.
And so then I started to go, oh, you must be silly then. And then, or you must be dumb. Or it wasn't till I wanted to actually learn something and go, well, no, I'm not dumb because look how great I am. Like, because this is when I was wedding events manager. I was incredible. I actually was the youngest wedding events manager in the whole of the company at that particular point in time.
Amazing.
And, you know, I excelled up that ladder so fast. And I was like, if I can do that, I'm not dumb. Like, I'm like, so I must just learn differently. And
Yeah.
I took a huge step back then. And that was just as I was transitioning to the fitness industry. I was like, I need to have more self-belief in myself. And you need to have the same backing power as you did to get this job as you will for your next.
And I think challenging those inner beliefs, particularly the negative ones, like that is no small feat. And look, there's heaps of stuff out these days where it's like, be conscious what you say to kids, because what you tell them becomes their inner voice.
Absolutely.
You tell them they're something, they believe they're something. If you tell a kid they're naughty, they'll believe they're a naughty kid.
Yep.
And then they'll act accordingly.
Absolutely. So, you are raising them in reflection of what they know.
Yeah.
And I can speak highly of that. Like, my mum and dad are the most beautiful people, and I feel like they're both country people too. Yeah, so like they're very down to earth. And, my mum was always like, you're like me, you're strong, you're powerful, like you're an intelligent woman. But in the background, which they weren't aware of until like my later years in life, like I was getting ripped down on the other side of that. And, it's the biggest struggle was that the contradicting information for me, the mean stuff was so much more powerful that it reduced my power. And it wasn't till I got older and I started to realize that this is the negative side of it and this is the positive side of it.
Yeah.
And when actually I'm not, because I watched my mum achieve greatness in her life. And if I'm like my mum, then I can do the same thing.
And I feel like I've got a little bit of a front row seat on watching this journey with you a bit, from when we first met to now, and just watching how much you've grown and you've like just stepped into this, like, this is who I am. I love who I am. Like, this is what I have to offer. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. I was such a pushover. I was like real bubbly. So the bubbliness has stayed, but I didn't have the strength behind me or the belief.
Yeah. And I feel like I love that you've realize the things that you bring to the table, because there's an absolute power in knowing what you have to offer, because I feel like that's what stops you from settling. Like, it means, well, I have this, so I'm going to demand XYZ because I deserve the same thing in return.
And I think a little bit of a take back on that. So obviously at the beginning, I was telling you guys that I had so much drive and wanted to achieve, like, my bodybuilding career goal. I wanted this business. I wanted all that. And like that drive and that confidence, put myself out there. It wasn't a matter of just because I didn't have self-belief in my own success. It was like, I will not fail. So even though I had contradicting mindsets about it, the power behind I will not fail outweighed how I felt about myself, because I was like, in my mind, I was like, if I fail, then I'm letting that win. And that was like, you've kind of got to push past it.
Stubbornness is a superpower. I refuse to fail. Success here. And I think that's important. And look, betting on yourself is scary. I still remember, and I went through similar, like, once you start to pull away from, working for someone else and having that security and guarantee there, you're putting all of your chips in your own basket and betting on yourself. And when that, comes down to your livelihood, like, it's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you don't have money, you don't eat, because you're the one that's providing that money.
But I just remember, like, for me anyway, having that mindset, well, if I'm not going to bet on myself, who will?
Yep, absolutely.
How can I expect other people to bet on me if I'm not even going to bet on myself?
And I honestly, like, if I didn't bet on myself, I wouldn't have had anyone else, because like the relationships external of family, there was no one betting on me.
Yeah.
And I felt very much alone in my early 20s, and like growing up, I was one of those people that just didn't ever feel like it was I truly could trust or could truly let people in. So I always kind of felt like they're at arm's length.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like there's also kind of power in having that autonomy and that time to yourself as well, from like a self-discovery perspective. At least that's what I'm telling myself. That's the journey I plan on going on, says the serial dater. But no, I think that there is a lot of power.
As long as it's not serial killer or serial dater, we're fine.
Yeah, true. Lesser of two evils at least. But no, your journey has been amazing. And I know I personally am so proud.
Thank you.
Watching how far you've come. And I'm hoping people listening as well feel a little bit inspired and just have that little, well, you know what? Like, maybe I can too.
Absolutely. And you can. If you want it, you can. Like, I don't believe that anyone can't achieve success or drive to their success.
Biggest obstacle is yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But don't expect not to fail either. If you don't fail, you're not doing it right. You're supposed to have fuck ups along the way.
That's where you learn, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up with, I want you to tell me, if you could have any superpower in the world, what would it be?
Oh, damn it. No, but there's like 4. So
No, you got to pick your favourite.
okay.
What was the first one that came to your head?
It was to fly, but that's really not it.
I can just picture you.
I don't know. I was like, I could be Superwoman, you know, like any superpower in the world. Actually, you know what it really would be?
What?
To understand other people's thoughts.
That would be terrible.
No, not hear them. Screw that. That would be a lot.
Understand them.
Like, as in, like, when someone speaks, like, you could feel the energy of what they're actually saying.
Their intention.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't know why, because I feel like compassion is something that it's like built into me. And sometimes I feel like I like to help people. So if I can't feel like I can help, I feel like I'm losing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I want to, and if I could understand.
You're in the right field for it then, right?
So I feel like if I could understand them better, then I would be able to be better at our bill system.